right, welcome back to the Rupert and Pinchy show. I'm Isaiah, also known as Pinchy. That's George, also known as Rupert. So, good morning. How's it going?
Good. Good morning, Pinchy. Glad to be here.
Seem very
Glad.
excited to be here. Glad to be here.
The excitement is charging my batteries at high. Can we start again?
No, we can't. This is the perfect start.
Yeah, you always have control and you get to keep what you want. I don't like
Well, you
that.
can
I
do that
think I'm
but that was funny though. So, are you sure you want
yeah.
to get rid of the funny
No, I am excited and I'm bubbling over with
bubbles?
extra bubbles. Yeah. So,
That yeah. And so,
actually there's a neat I think it's in one of the wisdom books, probably Proverbs. But it says that the life of the godly man is exciting. And there's another, in the life of the wicked, it doesn't say it right there, but there's other scriptures that would say that the life of the wicked is boring. And wickedness can be boring, even though they think it's all excitement. But um,
that's definitely
sometimes
boring.
sometimes seriousness and boredom can look a lot alike. Someone's,
Hmm.
"Oh, are you bored?" No, I'm just serious right now. I'm thoughtful. But being serious, it can be exciting. Anyway, my
Well,
point
yeah.
being that
Yep.
it's good to be you know, uh
Good.
excited and bubbling over with bubbles.
Yeah. Um, but that's an interesting point because I've thought of this a couple times. Wickedness ends up looking the same if everyone uh, indulges in it. I think we see that now, more and more today. And so it's a lot more boring and monotonous to uh, sin and to have sin rule your life. It really is. But having wisdom and the truth, I don't know how somebody could think that was boring to have the truth.
Well, yeah, wickedness closes in on itself. It's like where God calls us to look out from
Mm.
ourselves and to look at the beautiful world. And so, sin closes in on itself because
It's inward focus, is what you're saying.
yeah, inward focus, but the item of focus. It says we are ruled by those things that we lust for. So if you are given to drink, you're closed in
Hmm.
at the beer can. Your focus
Oh,
is the
right. Yeah,
beer
yeah.
can,
It narrows your
and
focus, is
so
what you're saying.
and everything else is kind of not important. And
That's a really
so
good point.
yeah, so anyway,
Right, right. That's a really good point. Actually, I've never thought of it that way. And you narrow your focus on that which controls your life, or starts to control your life. You focus on that so much that you start to just only focus on that, and
hmm
instead of focusing on the broader picture of things that you could do. Whereas when you're looking at the beauty of God's creation, there's it's teeming with life. There's more than one thing to look at. Just
hmm
put it that way.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting. But we're not talking about that today. At least I don't think.
So, so what's up? What's going on?
Uh, well, we've been talking a little bit about the story of Jacob and Laban. Um, and I think that really, if anybody's familiar with the story of Jacob and Laban, there's different views of whether or not Jacob was deceitful to Laban, as well as Laban being deceitful to Jacob, or whether or not Laban was deceitful and Jacob was blessed. So, I think that it seems that Jacob was blessed in not being deceitful to Laban. And so I thought we would go into it first so that we can have a better understanding and context of what we're talking about. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have the passages pulled right up here.
Hold up.
So basically, I'm gonna go real quick because it's 3 chapters of events. So basically, Jacob wants to marry Rachel, and Laban tricks him into laying with uh, his other daughter, and
Leah.
so
Mm-hmm.
so Jacob works for 7 years, as it says right here. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, um, and it was as a few days because of his love for her. So we have that, and then, like I said, Laban tricks him, and then he gives him another 7 years to work to have Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
And then let me just breeze right through here because we don't need to know all the other things that happen. Okay, so now we get to the part of Jacob wanting to leave because he has served him for a long time. Um, so this is where I'll pick up reading because I think it's important for context. As soon as Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know that you know the service that I have given you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wages, and I will give it." Jacob said to him, "You yourself know how I have served you, and how your livestock has fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly. The Lord has blessed you wherever I turn. But now when shall I provide for my own household also? Um, What shall I give you?" Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again pasture your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later when you come to look into my wages with you. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted as stolen." Okay, so then Laban takes all the bad spotted ones out of there so that Jacob doesn't get anything. Um, then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white sticks. He set the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the troughs, that that is the watering places, where the flocks came to drink. Since they had bread, when they came to drink, the flocks bred in front of the sticks, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks towards the striped and all the black in the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. Whenever the strong of the flock were breeding, Jacob would lay the sticks in troughs before the eyes of the flock, that they might breed among the sticks, but for the feebler of the flock he would not lay them there, so the feebler would be Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Okay, one point that I want to make is it seems with what I've found is that um, putting striped and or like broken sticks does not change the color of sheep when you put it in front of their eyes. And so I think to me it's like if it's not possible, then it seems that God would have to do that, wouldn't he? What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a procedure that cattle ranchers and lamb farmers out there and goat farmers use today. It's hey, just put a giant piece of wood in front of that, and then our animals will be a lot
Right,
bigger.
right. Yeah, there's not that.
No, it's not a process. So it had to be something. It's interesting that that Jacob just didn't say, Lord, just make some spotted and make some striped and make some whatever, and then Jacob had something to do in it. He had a part to play in it.
Hmm.
But Jacob, I mean, was the physical cause of the speckled and striped and front caused from the wood or the sticks that he put in front of him? No, that wasn't the material
Right.
cause.
Right.
That was Jacob honoring God and putting trust in God, and then God did a miracle. That was miraculous.
Yeah, and we don't just see that here. We see it when Jacob recounts the story, and that's what I really want to get to, is that we can make some interpretive leaps just based on that's not possible, so how did it happen? Well, it must have been God. That's how I view it, right? Even just looking at the logic of it. It's like, so Jacob did this action that doesn't actually affect sheep. So the options are they had a superstition, and the Bible is a lie, has a bunch of lies in it, which the atheist really loves to go to. Or the point isn't that this causes this, but that God can cause this. And that's what I would take, even in just looking at it on the surface at this part of the section, right? That's what I would say. Because the point isn't that this is possible, it's that Jacob was blessed by God. I think that's the point of this. Wouldn't you agree
Yeah,
with that?
every time he turned around, he was blessed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 10 times I think there's a scripture says that he complains to Laban, "You've changed my wages 10 times."
Yeah.
And God, Laban's Laban's treachery, or he loved Jacob in a sense because Jacob was his son-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
but he really loved money. So he was very greedy, and he would have no problem stealing from his own son-in-law, and he changed his wages 10 times to do so.
Well, he
But every
did. He
time he
did
did
steal
that,
it though, as well. He took all
but
the
even
spotted sheep out.
yeah, but even so, God still blessed him
Yeah.
to where he had. It's like, okay, you're going to do that, Laban? Well, okay, then I'll do this. You
Well,
going to
that's
do that,
also
Laban?
funny because he says, "I learned from divination that God has blessed you." Where I would be like, "Okay, you didn't have to do divination to figure that out." Um,
You just had to have eyes. You just had to have eyes.
yes, but then the other thing is, because of that, he's like, "Okay, if I can exploit Jacob to get what I want, the sheep that I want, let me do that." And then, you know what happens is, nope, that's not how it works. You can't just try and deceive God. No. And God will
Hmm.
still bless Jacob, you know.
Well, and you mentioned the divination. It's we know that divination is an abomination to the
Yeah,
Lord. And so and Laban says that he discovered by divination. Uh, Now, he didn't say I discovered by divination that you're being blessed,
right.
or that you were prospering.
Yeah.
I discovered by divination that God, the reason you're prospering is
It's
because
because of
of
God.
God.
Yeah.
Now, it's important to realize that's just kind of like a side note. It's just
Right.
mentioned, but the dark world is not unaware of when certain things are going on.
Right.
The devil can insinuate himself into people's lives by telling the truth
Hmm.
sometimes, you
Yeah.
know? So anyway, but
Right.
anyway,
Yeah.
but so the fact that Laban says I've discovered by divination, it kind of adds to his kind of character traits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. You're right.
Negative
I think it's
character
like a
traits
just juxtaposition of Jacob and Laban.
between him and Jacob.
Yeah. It's like
Hmm.
Laban adding to Laban's problems is his divination, and Jacob is relying on God. It seems.
Yeah, Jacob's a hard worker, and Laban's an opportunist to take advantage over anybody that he can to further himself ahead. Where
Hmm.
Jacob is just working faithfully, and God is blessing him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep. And then we move on to um basically, hold on, let me open that up. So basically Jacob wants to leave now, and okay. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's. What was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all his wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore striped. Bore striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. And then he expounds on what was already shown in the passage of what he did. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and is that mottled? Or, yeah, mottled, whatever. Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see. All the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. So I think that that's really interesting, because he's recounting it as if God had told him to do that. So it's like the options are he's lying about God doing that, or he's not lying about that. And like I already said, that's not possible, the striped branches and things. So I think that it seems more likely that God is the one that did it.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also, I just it. Do you think Rachel and Leah hadn't ever heard that before? Do you think that's possible?
Heard what?
Him explaining that he saw in a dream. Do you think that was the first
Uh
time they heard it?
uh I don't know. I think they probably interacted pretty intimately. I think um, it's possible. I think it's possible that he said that God is with me, or
Mm-hmm.
God has shown me.
Right.
Maybe he didn't give specific.
Right. Well, yeah, it's
Perhaps.
possible that they hadn't heard about it. I mean, but it seems like a summary statement of just of what's happening. Of what that he did this, he did that. You've been around, you've seen all this, but then he kind of like explains it in a way of well, now we've got to leave, kind of,
Hmm.
because just um because he's Laban's not being
Well,
reasonable.
yeah. Well, he's preparing. He's obviously giving him reasons why to or given his reasonings to why he has to leave and why they must leave,
Yeah.
and he's kind of breaking it gently to him in a sense, so that because I'm sure they love their father, they love where they live, they love their brothers, they've always lived there, and they're going to go away to a strange land. So, and they may on the outside, you raise an interesting question. Did they know about it? They may look and go like, "Well, Jacob, why do you want to leave? We're prospering like crazy here. Why are you not happy here?" And Jacob isn't leaving um, because he just wants to and he misses his home.
Right.
The Lord told him,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's
because
also true.
right,
Yep.
yeah. So the Lord told him to leave. So so anyway, he's explaining to his wife, two wives, that why they must leave, and kind of he's not, he didn't tell him, well, we're leaving because God told me.
Right.
Now he told him some of that, I'm sure, but he's also given him other reasons that would help them with that transition.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
not that they wouldn't disobey him, but that they would have comfort in leaving. So I think it's very wise on Jacob to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting to see Rachel and Leah's uh response because it seems like they also felt the same way of being cheated from Laban and that stuff, and they don't seem to have a problem with leaving. Is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So it seems like them saying, now
They
then,
were
whatever God
convinced,
has
yeah,
said to you to do,
that they
possibly
were.
they're making that leap, or Jacob told them, like,
Yeah, Jacob must have told them.
yeah.
Are you going to get into the hidden idols? Were you going to get into that?
Oh, I wasn't like planning on that, but if you want, we could do
Yeah.
that.
Well, the only reason I say when they did leave, I'd like to mention. Now, what's interesting is when they did, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. So when they did leave, in that history there of Jacob, the Rachel stole the household idols of
Laban.
Laban,
Yep.
and I'm not sure if she stole them because she wanted to worship them or because they were made of precious metals. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't tell us there. But it's interesting that when she gets accused, or when Jacob and his band gets accused of stealing those, Rachel is using deception, just like her father would.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she learned exactly how to operate.
Mm-hmm.
So Laban, you're going to treat me like this? Well, I know how to play this game. I learned from the best. So she tricked him into not checking her baggage,
Mm-hmm.
and she was the one who stole the idols. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
Jake,
related to this at all. I'm glad I brought it up. It's like tuna fish is better than peanut butter.
well, it's also interesting because Jacob becomes really angry with Laban for accusing them of taking the gods, which,
I know you feel a little bit bad for Jacob because he doesn't know the whole story. You
right.
kind of wonder if Rachel ever said, "Hey, by the way, Jacob, I actually did steal those."
Well, at some point they get rid of their idols, so it'd be like him finding out
Hmm.
for the first time that they had it. I don't know, like
Hmm.
because basically God tells them to get rid of their idols, and then they bury it under a tree. I'm pretty sure, which might have included
Well,
that those.
well, in I wouldn't call Laban wicked. I obviously would not call Jacob wicked.
Right.
Um, but it's interesting that Jacob, yeah, Laban is trying to take advantage of him. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he's not a very good guy. Um, uh, but he does love Jacob, and he does love his children, and he does love his grandchildren. Um, but I think it's real interesting that when Jacob says that he's changed his wages 10 times, Jacob really showed a lot of patience and forgiveness and charity to his father in
Mm-hmm.
law for a long time.
Yeah.
And really never ever rejected. Even though they were leaving, they weren't leaving because he robbed him for the 11th time. You know, it was because God told him. So, um, with what I like to think about is the deception that Jacob and um is it who was
Esau.
Isaac's wife?
Oh no,
Was it
Isaac what?
Rebecca?
Isaac's wife. is Rebecca. Yeah.
Yeah. So the deception that Rebecca and Jacob played on Esau,
Yeah.
I have a feeling that that some guilt wore on Jacob, and that he felt sorrow for being deceptive like that.
Mm-hmm.
God's purposes did not need Jacob and Rebecca's help.
Yeah. Yeah.
If Jacob was going to be in the first, to rule, God could make that happen without them helping, unless they told him, you know.
I thought of a
But
correlation with this passage too.
go ahead.
Just okay. So basically, they're told that God is going to, that Jacob's going to get the blessing and that Esau's not. Rebecca is told that, and they take it into their own hands, and then it breeds dissension and problems in the family. And so Jacob then goes and finds a wife, and then he is dealt with deceptively and harshly. And I think it's almost like a reversal of Jacob's character, seemingly, because
Mm-hmm.
he was a deceiver. Now he's being deceived, or being
Mm-hmm.
treated
Right.
harshly. And then also we see Laban try and take it into his own hands. Of, okay, I'm going to do divination to figure this out. Okay, I learned from divination that I'm being blessed because of you. So now I'm going to
Right.
exploit you. But God's like,
Right.
no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I'm going to go against that. And so, and then the story right after this is Jacob and Esau. And what does
Mm-hmm.
Jacob do? He is afraid of seeing his brother. And why is that? Because the last time that they saw each other, Jacob had stolen his
His
uh,
inheritance.
his inheritance. And some people might look at that story and be like, Jacob was clearly being a coward and was just, selfish. But honestly, when you look at it, he's really upset, seemingly, he's of seeing his brother again. But I think that this almost could serve as a reversal of Jacob's character and showing him change from being the deceiver to being deceived. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think that's possibly what the point of it is. It's really interesting. The reason why I say that that might be the point is because right after this story is a story with him and Esau seeing each other
Mm-hmm.
again. And this is in the same exact, like, part, the same exact section. And so I think that's possibly what is being stated here. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What do
Yeah.
you think of
Yeah.
that?
I think that's true. Um, I think Jacob had a real change of heart, and I think that it was a change of heart pretty quickly because when Laban kept taking advantage of him and
Mm-hmm.
mistreating him from the very beginning,
Right.
it didn't even start. So, and he didn't react in anger or fight or war or he just he I think he had learned his lesson from it's kind of like the parable of the slave who's given a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in that parable in the New Testament, that slave who is forgiven a lot by his master, he didn't learn the lesson. He goes and treats his fellow slaves with lack of mercy.
Mm.
Where here Jacob has learned his lesson,
Right.
and it comes to the culmination of when he's coming to Esau, and he fears Esau, but he also knows he feels that Esau has a right to feel that way in
Mm-hmm.
a sense, and he's appeasing and basically asking for mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he gives all these gifts. It's kind of funny in the Old Testament where everyone says, "You can. I would like to buy this field from you," and they say, "No, no, you don't need to buy it. we are going to give it to you happily. And then the person says, absolutely not. I need to give you the $40 for this field. And they're like, no, that would offend us. And they end up always giving the $40. It's kind of funny. So they give him the $40. So the same thing happens with Esau. Esau says, what is all these sheep and all these gifts? Keep them for yourself and your families. I have enough. No, please take them. Please take them. you know, and and it wasn't a small gift what Jacob gave him. I can't remember how many much cattle and goods that, but he gave Esau a lot as a peace offering. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
didn't
Yeah,
mean
he
to
does.
go off on the side note.
Well, I was trying to find the. There's a passage where he talks about is like me seeing you is as if I saw God. Hold on, where is it?
Mm-hmm.
For I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Um, Please
Well,
accept
you
my
could
blessing that is brought to you because God has dealt gracious with me. Okay, sorry.
you could imagine they lived in the same womb for 9 months. you know, they probably played forever. They and brothers will have an antagonistic or competitive nature
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in their relationship, but there's a real deep love there. So, um, Jacob probably felt like, yeah, I sold out my brother, and I kind of am rethinking that. I wish I wouldn't have sold him out
Mm-hmm.
because now he'll never be my brother again. But he comes, and so that's why he's so overjoyed about your face is like a god to me.
Well, it's really interesting because the passage right before this is when Jacob wrestles with God, and he says, "I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." That's really interesting
Mm-hmm.
because this is right before he says, "This is as if I saw the face of God." Um, because it basically in fear, but he was delivered, which is really interesting. Meaning that him saying that isn't just him. I don't think it seems like he's just trying to make a statement as if uh, trying to appease Esau more. I think it's more like him just saying. I think it refers to the previous passage of him talking about
Mm-hmm.
in fear I saw you, and then you delivered. I was delivered, and I think that I mean it's just really interesting when you go through this passage and think about it because I've never thought about these correlations until like we're talking about the Laban and Jacob and Laban story of like how these sections, what they're trying to point to. I think there's a lot here that it's trying to point to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't have a lot to say on this.
Well, and one of them is that the seeming theme of things that we talk about a lot. Man will not get in the way of God's purposes,
Right,
right?
right,
And he doesn't do it without man. He
right,
wants to use men, but men working against him or working unrighteously or whatever, it's not going to stop his
right.
purpose. It's like, okay, it's like, listen, you're going to win the championship. Would you like to win it without breaking two legs, or would you like to win it? You want to break your two legs. I'm still going to make you win,
Right.
but now what was interesting to me is I couldn't remember in that time frame of when Jacob wrestled with the angel. I thought it was when he was going to meet his wife, but I guess it was when he was coming back to meet Esau, huh?
Mm-hmm. It was.
It's just interesting that the angels like wrestled him for a while, and we don't know. Was it the Lord? Was it the angel of the Lord? It's um, regardless if it wasn't a human,
Right.
it was. And when the angel or the Lord had enough of this little struggle, he just popped his hip out and
Mm-hmm.
said, "Okay, we're done."
Well, I think that's really interesting because the point obviously isn't that Jacob was able to fight.
Right.
It's almost interesting. It's like, oh, you think you can just win? Well, there goes your hip. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's like in high school when I wrestled, one of the coaches, well, both of them would, but all of them would wrestle with all of us. You know, would take time, and and he could beat me anytime he wanted, obviously. But I didn't really think that. If someone sat down with me and said, "Okay, look at it," Coach Laflamme, his name was Lee Laflamme,
It's an
said,
interesting name.
"Coach Laflamme could beat you anytime he wanted." Now, granted, I wasn't very big, and he wasn't either, but he was heavier than I was. But anyway, he would just lay there, and he was a lot, and I was fighting like I thought I was winning. Until then, he would do something that would really hurt me, and 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 but he was doing it in a very kind and good coach way. Um, to such a point that I actually thought I was in a battle. There was no battle. It was already decided.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
That could be correlated to that kind of thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
Something else I was thinking about, which I might have just lost it. Oh goodness. Well, yeah. You were talking about that we can't um
Thwart God's
thwart God's
purposes.
purposes, and I think you were saying that He doesn't do it without us, but He can still do it. And so I think this is a good example of that because you were talking about him participating with the striped, with the logs and the sticks, and that
Hmm.
was a small part of it that wasn't like a necessary requirement that this will
No.
cause this, and you can see the reflection, or that there's like an cause and effect that is clearly here. It's more
Mhm.
like, okay, I'll just give you this to do if you want me to bless you this way. And so it's like, okay, I'll do it. God can still bless him if he wants, and his purposes won't be thwarted. But in order for us to grow, it's better for us to act along with God's purposes. I think that's like the call of the Christian messages is like submit your will to God's will. You know?
Hmm.
You can't
Hmm.
strive against God and his purposes. But what you can do is you can participate in it, right?
Well, you have to. Yeah. Submission is not an inactive position. A lot of times we think of submission as inactive. We're not acting. We're submitting. It's like when a quarterback submits to the offensive coordinator, and the offensive coordinator sends in the play and says, "Hey, this is a passing play," and so the quarterback runs a passing
Mm-hmm.
play. He was acting. He was moving. He was active. His submission was a recognition. I think that's where a definition of piety is recognizing those who have authority over you and honoring them. You
I
know,
think that's in the religious sphere though, is what piety is
yeah,
about.
it is. But that's what I'm referring to
Yeah.
is that there's a certain recognition of authority, and so. But anyway, but you still have something to do. Yeah,
Yep. Well, yeah, and it's God tells him to leave. Laban. He tells him to
yeah.
go. It's
Or
like,
it tells Jacob to leave.
yeah, Jacob to leave. And
Yeah,
I mean, we see also Christ saying like, um, if you believe in me, you will do what I uh, have. You will obey me. Basically, is what he's saying. And it's like that's kind of what submitting to God means is to follow his instruction and his precepts of what he's told us to do.
I'm thinking back of so uh, the Lord tells Jacob, to gather your belongings and family and leave and head to your father's house or whatever. Jacob didn't go like, "Hey everyone, get your banana daiquiris and sit down. God's going to move us to, you know,
Right.
back to." No, they had something to do, and I was thinking, it echoed in my mind. Jonah, I love Jonah's. Uh, Pick me up, cast me into the sea.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah.
That was not submission.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, that was his final stab at not submitting. You know,
Well, I shouldn't have said absolutely. I don't know. Maybe.
well, I would say it's. Well, I wouldn't say it's not submitting. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to Nineveh, and let's make this a permanent deal. Just cast me over the sea. Now, in the back of his mind, we talked in that previous episode. In the back of his mind, maybe Jonah thought, okay, God really does want me to go to Nineveh, so I could jump in front of a bus. I could get ran over by a train. I could get eaten by a whale. Somehow, I'm still gonna make it to Nineveh. And that's the point that I was making before, is that, okay, if God's purpose aren't thwarted, do you want to do God's purposes with two broken legs, or would you like to have them not broken?
Right. Right.
You know, either way, he's going to work it out for you. So, and either way, it can be a blessing. So if we're very resistant and we're very stubborn, it's like, well, I'm still going to get you across the line, but you're going to learn something from it. This is going to hurt. Didn't have to hurt, but this is going to hurt.
Right. Right.
So,
And in
so
the passage of Jonah, when we're talking about Jonah, it's like he goes to the city and then he's like, ah, Nineveh will be overthrown and repent. And then what happens? They dress the
they get crazy.
animals in sackcloth. It's like
Yeah.
what? They
Yeah.
even the animals apparently repented. No, I'm just kidding.
Another proof that God was involved with that.
Right, but
But
but that's like we can be as resistant as we want, and we can say like stupid things, and then it'd be like somebody actually changed their mind with me saying that. That's really impressive, God. I don't know how you could do that.
well, and if you ask those two types of people, if you ask the person that God gets across the finish line without breaking his legs, and then you talk to the person that God gets him across the finish line with two broken legs, and you talk to him, you talk to the guy that had his legs broken. He doesn't even care about the broken legs. He's glad God did it. If that's what it took to get me to see, I want him to break
Mhm.
every bone in my body. I don't care. I want to get across this line. I thank God for being consistent enough with me to fight in my stubbornness or fight whatever I was resisting.
Right.
He didn't just leave me to my own devices. He kept pushing. And there was something in that person, in that fighter that has their legs broken or whatever, that has to be there as well, because God just doesn't do it by just exerting His sovereign will.
Mm.
He works with us. We have a free choice to cooperate. So there was something in that, but anyway.
Uh, there was a reference that I was trying to think of, but I lost it with the Jonah thing. I don't know.
All right.
That was really I think that was pretty good. What do you think?
Interesting.
And it was shorter than a lot of our other ones.
Good. Good. And just as a suggestion to you people out there, you may already know this already, but when you're watching our YouTubes, and you are required to, and the government is watching, we're watching, China is watching you. But if you go up into the right corner and you hit the tools, in order to save yourself some time, you can play us at a higher speed. And that 5 hour and 20-minute video that we do on the color of blue, which maybe a lot of you think that it shouldn't take 5 hours to talk about blue, but we found a way. But if you put us at high speed, you'll get through that quicker. And I do that with when I don't have a lot of time and there's something I really want to listen to.
You do
I
that.
will play it, at higher speed. I'll try it out because I don't want to listen to chipmunks and I want to be able to follow.
Well,
But
I've tried that on Ben Shapiro's videos, but I can't understand anything
it's
that's being
impossible.
said.
I don't think you can do that ever. I don't think you could ever do that even if you wanted to. You know what I mean? So, all right. So,
Yeah, he's
hey,
just too fast.
yeah. All right.
Have a good week. Ha! Faster than you.